So we've been in this series called Dollars and Cents where we've been talking about money. So we've learned a few things already. One is that there's just no way of getting around it. Money is actually a spiritual issue. Okay, it's not just the physical. It's something deeper than that. There's this head and heart and this deeply intrinsic piece to it. That's spiritual. Okay, but it's not just that. It said there are riches and there are true riches. Pastor Dale talked to us last week of the difference between these two things and what it means to put our hope in true riches. And how do we even do that? Well, these true riches can only come from the kingdom of God. And that has to be our foundation, especially if we want to look to the next life, the next world that he was just kind of laying out there. And so we have to turn away from worldly wealth. And how do we do that? Well, we do good. We love others. We serve others. And in the words of Pastor Dale, not mine, do gooder than good. Then you're just going to be rich in your works. That's what you're rich in, not in worldly wealth. And to the point that you're generous with everything. And even this challenge he left us with, to never own anything that you aren't willing to lend out to someone. Okay, all right. That's tough. Got to try that on for size. No big deal. But it's good. There are these truths that we need challenges around because we all have places to step forward in. And so we want to look to our theme verse as well to keep remembering these things again with head and heart. So if y'all would say it with me, 1, 2, ready, go. Whoever can be trusted with very little can also be trusted with much. And whoever is dishonest with very little will also be dishonest with much. So if you have not been trustworthy in handling worldly wealth, who will trust you with true riches? Those true riches. So to take the next step in the conversation today, we need to venture back to the 1980s, okay? I absolutely love the 80s, and it's music and movies, and I don't know if it's because I was, created in the 80s or maybe because my parents just had amazing taste in music and movies, but one of those movies that's one of my all-time favorites is The Money Pit with Tom Hanks, okay? So if it's been a while since you've seen it, or if you've never seen it, just imagine trying to buy this house without doing an inspection, okay? This is a lesson to be learned, all right? So it was a mansion that was on the market, and it was just too good to be true. And so we're going to find out why right now.
Little problem in the kitchen, nothing trivial.
Well, the turkey's done.
So is the kitchen. Actually, it's a little overdone for my taste. Let's not go there again.
You don't want to tell me what happened?
No, I don't. I just want to relax in a nice lukewarm bath.
What about this?
I don't think that can hurt us anymore.
Yeah. So he keeps laughing for like another 30 seconds, so we had to just kind of cut that at some point. Every scene in that movie is like that. So it's really funny, but it's also like really painful to watch. And I think it's painful because it hits a little bit too close to home. And it's not because we've all poured money into a house that was essentially unsalvageable, but maybe because we haven't always been the wisest with money. And so it could be that we've thrown good money after bad like Tom Hanks did, or it could be that we spent money we didn't have in the first place. And so I think as we venture into this money pit and understanding what debt is, we got to look at the categories of debt and where we might fall within that. So I think there are three categories that we may be classified into. So the first category is that you said goodbye to debt years ago, okay? It's no longer in your life, and maybe you've never even been in debt. Praise God. That's fantastic. We're excited for you. All right. But into category 2 is some of us who maybe have gotten into debt and then out of debt and then back into debt and then out of debt. And we always leave debt as a possibility. We keep it on the back burner and say, yeah, we could always just go back into debt if we need to do this or need to accomplish that. And we can't seem to shake it from our lives. And then there's category 3, those of us who have accepted debt as a family member. But not the one you want, and not the one that anybody talks about. But they're there, and honestly, you've just accepted it. And you say, well, this is just life. This is how life is supposed to look. Well, in order to understand where we're all at in our understanding of debt, and maybe how to get out of it, or never to get back into it, we need to see debt as God sees debt. I think there's something for us to learn within this. And so, in Proverbs 22, we have Solomon giving us just one sentence, but so much wisdom within it. So 22:7, check this out. The rich rule over the poor, and the borrower is servant or slave to the lender. Okay, so depending on your translation, it will say servant or slave. For our context, we're going to just stick with slave. We need to think slave. Do not go into the idea of servant. Why? Because we think servants have a choice. We think servants can just step back and go somewhere else. But that's not the situation with the one who is borrowing. They are the slave. They are the one oppressed, held down. They don't have the option to walk away. They don't have the choice. And so this word here for slave is, in Hebrew, is ve'ebed. If y'all can say it with me. Ve'ebed, all right, well done. So this context, you got to remember that these are people who knew what slavery was about. They knew slavery. This was the nation of Israel. That was a part of their history, a huge, huge part of their history. In fact, when they look back, they said, God took us out of Egypt, okay? He brought us from slavery. That's a big piece of their history. And so they knew what slavery was. And so if someone said blank is slavery, they would say, well, I don't want to do blank. Blank is clearly bad because slavery is bad. Blank is bad as well. So they would avoid it at all cost. But this is not just a reactionary verse that God gave to them. In fact, when he was creating the nation of Israel, when he was setting them on for the right course, in Deuteronomy 28, we see that he's got these challenges of obedience for them, but it's not just for obedience sake. It's actually so that they could be put in this situation to be blessed by God. And in one of those places was their finances. So in 28:12, we see this. The Lord will open the heavens, the storehouse of his bounty. Yeah. To send rain on your land in season. Yeah, and to bless all the work of your hands. Don't miss this. You will lend to many nations, but will borrow from none. You will always be the lender, never the borrower. And why is that? Well, a few different reasons. One, God always knew it's better to be the lender than the borrower. Okay, it's better to make interest than to pay interest. So that's true. That's a universal truth. That's a good option. But not just that. He knew that he wanted to bless Israel, the nation, so that they would be able to bless other nations. And he said, you can't bless them like I want to bless them if you are slaves. You can't bless them if you're always having to answer to someone else. If you're always oppressed and held down, you don't have that freedom to bless other nations. And you're not going to be the people I need you to be. Always, always, always be the lender. Now, they could follow the slavery thing. They could get that. But why can't we get that? Why don't we see debt as slavery? I think it's because of this. Because debt doesn't come to us like slavery. Debt comes to us in the form of a new car. So you're like, hey, if debt means I get a new car, debt is amazing. Debt is the best. In fact, all my friends should go out and get into debt. Because you can get a car, and then you can get a boat, and then you realize you don't have the right car to tow the boat. So you need to get a new car. You need to get the right car and the right boat and the latest technology. You don't have to wait any longer for all the things that you want. You can have it now if you just say yes to debt. So debt's great. And it parades around like this amazing thing, but it's really not that. It's really slavery. It really holds you back. It doesn't open you up to all these options. That's not really what's going on. But it's hard to learn these truths. It's hard to see the reality of it all. And this is where my story comes in. So when I was 20 and I was in college, I was living within my means. Now I had taken on a little bit of tuition debt, which is not my plan necessarily, but thankfully tuition was not bad in my undergrad. So I was going to have that to deal with after school. But in the meantime, I was living within my means. I had a part-time job. I was paying $165 a month in rent. Right? None of you would want to live there, okay? I'm just going to say it. It wasn't the money pit. It was just the pit, okay? It was bad. But I did it because that's what I could afford, and it was the right option for me. In fact, it wasn't just that I could afford it. I was actually saving money in the process. See, kids, there was this thing called layaway that existed, and it meant that you waited for those things that you wanted. And so I bought my first new, really awesome guitar on layaway. I was writing checks and sending them up. See, kids, there are these things called checks. And I bought my first computer with cash. I was doing all the right things. And then one day, a friend came up to me, and he said, Eric, there are a few of us in town that have this new business venture we're getting into, and we need some sharp business leaders, and we thought about you. What do you think? Now, I was a sociology major at the time, but my ego answered first and was like, yeah, I'm your guy right here. I'm totally sharp in everything, so sign me up. And so then my friend introduced me to the multi-level marketing opportunity. It was a pyramid scheme. I was Michael Scott, okay? I was a guy who had no idea about pyramid schemes. No one ever told me about them, definitely not to stay away from them. And so I didn't know what to even look for. So for Michael Scott, he was selling things in his pyramid scheme. For this, it was all about how you spent your money. So it sounded really nice. It sounded like a good option. And so if you spent all your money at Walmart or at Publix, something like that, it was, don't spend it there, spend it with us online. Oh, okay, sure. It's going to be a little more expensive. All right, well, I can handle that. Okay, but all those things that you need, well, they're based on a point value system through this business. And all the things you actually need have a very small, low number of points. The things that no one needs, huge points, so many points. And that's how I ended up with 120 packets of powdered apple cider. I lived in South Georgia. I didn't need that much apple cider. It wasn't cold. It was not cold. And they were really good at selling these energy drinks to everybody. And so you get 0 carbs, 0 sugar, 0 caffeine. And you're like, how's this an energy drink? I don't even understand. What are y'all putting in this stuff? And this was my life. And these are the choices I was making, right? Well, the problem is that a pyramid scheme like this is going to parade around like a business venture, which means that business debt is okay, because that means you could probably make a profit one day. But for most people, definitely for me, it's actually consumer debt. And I didn't have that free money just kind of laying around. And so that credit card I had never used, I began to use. Now, I only lost a few $100s in the pyramid scheme. Thank God, it could have been worse. But it awakened within me this mindset that a credit card was my opportunity to get the things I wasn't willing to wait for. And so while layaway was once a part of my life, this was not happening anymore. I was just swiping. In college, said, oh, new computer? Yeah, let's do that. Oh, I love doing videography on the side. Let's buy a new camera. This is great. I can get it now. And so before I knew it, credit card debt had taken over my life. And this is different than tuition debt. It's a different beast. I couldn't even understand what was going on as it was happening. And as I was finishing college, I was looking towards this full-time job. and I was starting to get the benefits of that full-time job. And I thought, I can't drive around that rust bucket that I've had for all of college. I need a new car. And so I had tuition, and I had credit cards, and I had a car loan. And I was enslaved. I was stuck. To the point that I felt richer actually just a couple of years earlier when I had a part-time job. I didn't even see the difference with a raise in salary or even getting multiple jobs or anything like that. I saw none of it. I just saw debt. So I was Tom Hanks, but not cool Tom Hanks. I was like tens of thousands of dollars in debt Tom Hanks. And that's worse than Castaway Tom Hanks, all right? That is the worst Tom Hanks there is. This is my reality, right? And then I met my wife, Katie. And we started dating. Yes, everyone cheer for Katie. This is a good thing. All right, so Katie was on a different journey. She was on a different pathway than I was. She was not in debt. She answered to no one. She told her money where to go. Yeah, right? And so as we got closer to marriage, I realized that I couldn't bring this any further. I had to let go of this, but I didn't know how. And so, while this is not a shameless plug for Financial Peace University, that's exactly what I did, all right? In my church, that's what I started attending, and it changed my life. It changed my perspective. The past decade of life, I could see what was really going on, how I was seeing money, how I was seeing resources of God's, and I just had to repent from it. I did. I was so sad about what I'd done with this opportunity I had of how to handle money and how to use God's resources. So it was sad, it was convicting, but it also gave me a lot of hope. It gave me hope that I didn't always have to live with this, that I could actually kick that family member out of my family. I didn't have to live life this way. And so we did the very thing that every couple is trying to get out of debt does, and we went to seminary, right? So it's like, let's do that. Actually, we got rid of a ton of debt while in seminary, which was amazing. And so we went through our steps, and we started to feel those chains just fall off. And it took years and years, but after a lot of discipline, a lot of self-control, well, yeah, that one sticks a little bit, right? Then we're in the point that we're at right now. And we're not completely out of debt, but we're like this close. But we're so far from the money pit. And I know that I'm not the only one who's had this in their life. And I'm not the only one who's had this kind of story. In fact, a few weeks ago, you may remember that they had the NFL draft where all these young men overnight become millionaires. And it's this like Cinderella story for a lot of them. And so everybody's excited and happy for them. And all that's great. But what they don't tell you is that on the other side of it, 80% of retired NFL players go broke. 80%. Now, there are a lot of different theories on why that's true, but what it does tell us is that more money is not the answer. More money doesn't mean you're going to get out of debt, stay out of debt, or that you know how to use money in the first place. So if we're looking at people who can be trusted with a little or with much, maybe this is how we see it kind of shake down. I saw it in my life, but wouldn't it be great to be on the other side of that? A person who could be trusted with a little, could be trusted with much, and have a different conclusion, a different story in their life. One of those men who that's true for, he and his wife were looking at all their finances, and they said, all right, so we could just accrue all this, and we could die and then give it away in our death, or we could start giving it away right now, and we could see lives changed in this world. We could be a part of that. Now, along the way, they met some graduates from Asbury Seminary. They met some pastors and ministers, and they said, hey, there's some good stuff going on there, and we want to help support that. And so they went to Asbury, and they said, hey, we want to give money. How can we help? What can we do? They said, all right, well, let's set up a scholarship. And so each year, 60 students have this scholarship that covers the majority of their tuition, and I was one of those students. Okay, I was one of those students. And 60 might not sound a lot to you, but it's a seminary. There aren't that many people. It's not exactly UCF, all right? There's not that many people, so 60 is a lot. But it wasn't just that. It was, hey, we're also going to build 150 townhomes for families to live in at a really, really low rent. And so I want to show you a few pictures of that. So this is the front of our townhouse. This is actually taken on our moving day. We were in the middle unit right there. We had neighbors from Nigeria, from South Korea, from India, and Ohio. So that's the front, beautiful, beautiful home. And then there's from our front view, you could see this Kentucky storm rolling in there. That's an undulatus asperatus cloud, in case you are wondering. Beautiful cloud. And then the back side, you can see on a snowy day, our view there. So here's the thing. Earlier when I said that we were getting out of debt while in seminary, that wasn't just our faithfulness. Actually, that had more to do with this family's faithfulness. Man. Wouldn't it be amazing to be in that situation, to have your life bless others like that? Well, I think that no matter where we're at when it comes to debt or when it comes to wealth, there are a lot of things that we need to live by. There's a lot of overarching principles to live by. And so I have this acronym. You can either take a picture when it's done or write it down or whatever, but I encourage you to take this in. So we're just going to go through this. All right, so K, know where your money is going. Know where your money is going. There are a lot of different pipelines where all your finances are going, and there might be some leaks along the way. There might be some cracks along the way that you don't know about. Maybe there's some interest rates that are way too high, and you have no idea. Just find out where all your money is going. Never stop pruning from your life. Don't get attached to things. And it doesn't mean that you have a bunch of fancy rich people things, but things are not great for us. So seasonally, get rid of things in your life because it helps you focus head and heart on true riches, not worldly wealth and not just the stuff in the world. So, oppression is the only thing that debt has to offer you. Look past the marketing, look past the shiny stuff, and see what's really going on below. And it's oppression. It's threatening to hold you down. Don't be fooled. That's what debt does to you. W, watch your giving, your saving, your spending, and your debt. So once you see all those pipelines of money, then you can start to tell your money exactly where it needs to go. So maybe you look at debt and you say, all right, 25% of my income is going towards debt. That's great. All right, so you figure out those numbers, and then over time, just keep changing it a little bit, a little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Just watch it over time. And eventually, your debt, and maybe your spending even, are up here, and they just go down and down and down. And instead, you see your saving and your giving go up instead. And so it's just a long obedience in the same direction makes a huge difference in your life financially. D, ditching debt is really about learning self-control and discipline. The thing is that I didn't have a money problem. I had a self-control problem. Okay, so when I had a full-time job and then I got that extra part-time job, that wasn't the answer. I was still the same person doing the same things I had always done. I had a self-control problem. And that's something for all of us to keep learning in our lives, is how to practice self-control, how to be disciplined in every facet of life. E, even though the steps out of debt are slow, keep perspective. You might be looking at a mountain of debt in front of you. You might feel like there's no way to get through this, but keep taking step by step by step each day, and eventually you're going to look behind you and see a mountain. You don't think that God can move mountains? Trust Him with your finances, okay? Trust Him with your finances, as He can do that in your life. Keep that perspective that it's not just in what's in front of you, but remember where you've been and where you've come from. Praise God. B, be scrappy with debt. Take it down, all right? Vehicles are a good way to understand this. So maybe you're in this huge car loan right now, and you really don't need to be. Maybe you do take that step and say, let's put that to the side. Let's get a vehicle that means we can get out of debt quicker. Great. Maybe it means that when your car is breaking down, you don't do this very same thing that you've always done, get a new car. Maybe you get a vehicle that's dependable, but you can pay with cash. That means that you can save up for all those things that you actually need to be saving up for. Just do it differently. Do it differently than what you've always done, and do not do what your neighbor is doing. Do not feel that pressure. I have a neighbor in here. Sorry, neighbor. It's just like, do things differently. That's okay. That's okay. And then T, the goal is to honor God with your money. Remember that it comes from him. It belongs to him. It's dispersed by him. And just like Israel, he desires to bless us, but not just to end with you. That blessing is to go out from you to the world, okay? He's going to bless you so that you can bless others. And so it may be that you're still in debt and you're like kind of wrestling with that. Here's the thing. You can bless others while you're in debt. That's very true. In fact, I was still able to give while, being in debt. You can do that. But imagine how much you can bless others and be a blessing when you are no longer the one borrowing, when you're no longer the one chained down by anything. Imagine what kind of difference you can make in this world. So even if you're in a situation right now that feels hopeless, don't give up hope. Jesus can free us from the slavery of sin. He can definitely free us from the slavery of debt. In fact, he can move us from being slave to servant. From the person who doesn't have a choice to the person who's actually gotten freedom in their lives. And that's what Christ offers to us, is this freedom and this love. And so that we can serve others, so we can serve him. And that's how he came to us. He laid down his life. No one took it from him. And he did that to give us hope in something greater and someone greater than the pain and the debt and the chains of this world. He did it to bring us life. And so as we consider all these things, I want to lift all of us up in this room right now, wherever we're at, to lift up those things that are holding us down. So Jesus, I know that we probably represent everywhere on the scale today, and that's just not the most important thing. What is important, Father, is that you know us personally. You have plans for each and every one of us, and you want something greater for us than what this world has to offer. And so, Lord, in whatever way that we are chained this morning, it could be debt, it could be addiction, it could be all sorts of things, Lord, but whatever we're chained to this morning, I ask that you would break that. You would break that, and you would begin to write louder your story for us, over us. So sing over us this morning, Father, and have our hearts in Jesus' name.